Good evening and welcome to Fine Point, where no narrative is sacred, no media hoax is safe, and we zero in on the big picture. I'm your host, Chanel Rion. Can you feel it in the wind? It's 1775. Again. All this talk about how much money the Qataris are peddling to influence conservatives like Tucker against Israel, that's just scratching the surface. The Qataris are the left hand of China, and Venezuela confirms it. America is 8 weeks into a military campaign against Venezuela and Colombia. And as I've said before, this is just a cover story. Yes, we're taking out narco-terrorists and making socialist dictators quake. But really, this is an all-out war against communist China and China's grip on the weakest chains in our hemisphere. China owns Venezuela. $60 billion in debt with every port controlled by China. Doesn't take a genius to figure that out. But a new angle of the story has just emerged. So whenever you hear Qatar, think China. In an exclusive report by the Miami Herald, we learned that earlier this year, the Qataris were neck deep trying to mediate a more acceptable regime change in Venezuela. Team Trump rejected it. Listen to this. According to the Herald, the Venezuelan Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez, and her brother, Jorge, the President of the National Assembly, quietly lobbied Washington, presenting themselves as the more acceptable alternative to Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro. They funneled these proposals through the Qataris. The Qataris presented the U.S. with 2 formal proposals, one in April and one in September. The pitch was this. The Rodriguez siblings were not associated with narco-terrorists. They could continue a smooth transition, and they'd do this peacefully, all while giving Maduro asylum in Turkey or Qatar. Secretary of State Rubio and President Trump took 2 glances at this deal and said, absolutely not. This was just Maduro China light. Trump was not being fooled. So back up. How are the Qataris involved in Venezuela? Well, great question. Turns out, when Trump was turning up the heat on Venezuela earlier this year, the Qataris intensified their lobbying efforts in the United States on behalf of Caracas. You see, U.S. officials have accused Qatar of providing shelter for Venezuelan dirty money, especially the dirty money of the ruling elite. Vice President Delcy Rodriguez maintains, according to the Herald, a significant relationship with members of the Qatari royal family, and it is with them she hides assets. Why does she hide assets? Well, she's not as detached from the cartels as the Qataris have presented her, and Trump knows it. Turns out Delcy and her brother are tied to money laundering and logistics for a cartel of the Suns. The cartel, State Department says, is linked to Maduro. All this was presented first to U.S. Special Envoy Rick Grenell, who then relayed all of this back to Washington while he was rescuing U.S. citizens jailed in Venezuela. Neither Grenell nor State Department have commented on this story. And why would they? America wouldn't even consider the plan, but it does give us some very important context. The hardliners inside Trump world, the Rubios, who know a lot about Latin America and how it is a front for China's U.S. invasion, knew this was a meaningless offer, born of sheer desperation. And that Qatar is a handmaiden for China and is now their mediator. Qatar is trying to save China's foothold in the Western Hemisphere. You don't negotiate regime change and trade one narco-terrorist puppet for a different set of narco-terrorist puppets and think we'll just go along with that. We're not. Qatar, who outspends nearly every country in the world lobbying right here in Washington, is also not some independent nation either. Qatar is a China proxy. Qatar and China have a deep partnership that goes back officially to 1988. China is Qatar's largest trade partner. Qatar exports oil and gas, and China imports goods and services. They're joined at the hip. But it turns out there are deeper ties between China and Qatar. It's historical and geographical as well. They've been longtime partners since the Silk Road days, and their relationship has only blossomed and bloomed into Qatar playing a key partner to China's Belt and Road Initiative. In September, the same month Qatar tried to push this China light solution in Venezuela, an article in Doha wrote, quote, "The Qatar-China relationship is currently experiencing its highest level in history, standing as a model of friendly cooperation and strategic partnership," said an official. The Qatar-China relationship is touted by both sides as being in a golden age. Chinese officials in Qatar praised the friendship between Xi and the Emir of Qatar just this last month. And just to reiterate, I've been saying the Beijing Bannon crowd are one and the same, remember? Well, the Beijing Bannon crowd is siding with China against Trump on Iran, Gaza, and Israel. And would it surprise you that the Beijing Bannon crowd has been attacking Marco Rubio and attacking Trump's Venezuela moves too? What a coincidence. Turns out again, this is exactly how China feels about the situation. And China is using everything in its toolbox to try and hold on to Latin America. From ensuring the Bannon-Tucker-Candace crowd mimics China's every talking point to leveraging China's left-hand men, the Qataris. And Trump is buying none of it. Here to weigh in is the founding director of Jihad Watch and New York Times bestselling author Robert Spencer. Robert, thank you so much for joining us. I want your reaction to what I laid out there and maybe give us some context about how Qatar's relationship with China is something that we don't really talk about.
Thank you, Chanel. You know, this is really the highest point of the red-green axis, which is something that we see playing out all over the world today. When you see, for example, on college campuses, all these indoctrinated bots, these young students out there agitating for Hamas, they have been indoctrinated by university professors at universities that are massively funded by Qatar. And Qatar and China are working together to destabilize and ultimately destroy the West. The reason why the left and the Islamic world, and remember, Qatar is the chief sponsor of the Muslim Brotherhood in the whole Western world, and particularly in the United States. The reason why they are so closely aligned is out of a shared hatred for America, a shared authoritarianism, and a desire to destroy America because it presents the chief competition to the internationalist authoritarian regimes that they envision. And so I really applaud you for bringing to light all of this when we have Qatar working with China, with the Belt and Road Initiative, not only in Latin America, but also all across Central Asia, in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and their environs. This is something that the United States ignores at its own peril.
You know, Robert, what's alarming, though, is Qatar has a lot of money, and China does too. China spends it in ways that are a little more underhanded. Qatar is not as afraid to waltz around Washington, D.C. and court Republicans, court conservatives. I mean, the Qataris have made some real inroads with the right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, it cannot be underestimated that Qatar has spent millions of dollars targeting particularly Trump supporters. And so I thought this is great that you're calling out the Bannon Group and Candace and so on, because this is the fruit of this Qatari influence operation. These are the things that they have paid for, and they're getting their money's worth in splitting the right and making conservatives turn against what has been the positions that patriots have taken all these years. And so it's been an extraordinarily successful effort, extremely skillfully deployed, but ultimately it just comes down to the bottom line. And as you say, Qatar and China both, they got plenty of money.
Well, it's also short-sighted to just say it's Qatar. I mean, that's the broader point, right? The broader point is this kind of marriage, this union. On the surface, I think a lot of analysts miss the point when they say, well, it's Qatar just trying to be the new Switzerland. They're trying to make friends with everybody. I don't think that's necessarily the case, especially when you look at their ideological history, when you look at their long-term friendship with China. It's short-sighted to say this is just Qatar. It is, when you say Qatar, you also have to mention China.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we have to bear in mind that this mediating role that they are assuming, both with Hamas in Israel and now in Venezuela and everywhere else that they can make it stick, this mediating role is really just a way to play both sides against each other and to try ultimately to gain an advantage for itself and its allies.
Robert, before I let you go, you are actually working on another book, Intifada on the Hudson, The Selling of Zoran Mandani. What a timely title. I know we're not very far out from this mayoral race, and either way, I think it's going to be very important people understand the background of Mandani here, his ideological upbringings. I think you really dive into that in this new book.
Yeah, it's just out now. It's available on Amazon. And the funny thing is, Mandani kind of personifies what China and Qatar are doing on a national and international level, because he is both a Marxist, although he denies it. It's very clear, and I have the receipts in the book. He's not only a Marxist, but a Twelver Shiite Muslim. That is, he's an adherent of the official religion of the Islamic Republic of Iran, where they chant death to America in the mosques every week by order of the government. And the supreme leader of Iran has said, this is not just a slogan. This is a policy. This is the mission and goal of our regime. So imagine the damage a man like that could do as mayor of New York. Wow.
Zoran Mandani is the love child between communist China and the Muslim Brotherhood. There is an image. Robert Spencer, right. We look forward to reading the book. Thank you for your time, and we always appreciate it when you drop by.
Thanks very much. Always good to talk to you.
Coming up, Curtis Sliwa, speaking of New York, walked off his show after pressure from his own boss to drop out of the New York mayoral race. Remember, Sliwa is running for Republican candidate out there, and everyone says he's going to spoil the race. Former New York City Congressman George Santos weighs in on the latest in that race. We'll be right back.